What's going on, everyone? Today I bring an immediate follow-up tale to the previous video. Link will be in the description, and I will be sharing one of the most overpowered duplication exploits that I ever discovered on 2B2T. This duplication glitch took place in January 2014, right after New Year's, and right after the comeuppance of Pop-Up. Prior to this incident, Pop-Up had made it out to my base at the lands. Upon arriving, he had taken a very big portion of my stash. We had injured Pop-Pop's ego previously, and he had in return done just as much damage to the foundations of my base itself. At that time, I lived millions of blocks out from spawn and considered myself quite safe, so it was an awful shock to me that Pop-Pop had actually discovered us. And as Pop-Pop was still known to be in the area, me and my basemates hesitated, continuing to live and build at the lands. I decided, however, that I wasn't going to allow Pop-Pop to scare me off, so I continued doing rather ordinary daily projects. Very soon thereafter, my friends and I, out of pure necessity, needed to find a way to somehow replace the items that we had lost to Pop-Pop. One day, while moving items from the old stash site to the newer stash site nearby, I'd seen Pop-Pop in chat mentioning something rather cryptic. And I didn't know it at the time, but I would soon find out just what Pop-Pop had in store for all of us. He'd mentioned something along the lines of him attacking the 12th base of 2014. And while we weren't exactly certain how he was griefing so many bases, we knew it could not be good. In addition to these actions, although we did not know it at the time, Pop-Pop was already implementing his now infamous lightning hack, and was well on his way to destroying many more bases. Pop-Pop would also use his announcer hack, which would state in general chat any action the player using the announcer was doing at the time. Pop-Pop popularized the usage of the announcer hack about 2 years earlier, and at that time, it was still only in the hands of a few private clients. This annoyance, which was done intentionally to cause such feelings within all other players on the server, caused one of my friends, Zarviar, to retaliate with his own form of spam, the lyrics to Eminem's famous Rap God, in order to drown out Pop-Pop spam and just in general, make a mess for his own amusement. However, Zarviar was at the time using a boat to travel between the new stash site and his part of the base at the lands. Whether by being idle for too long or simply not realizing he'd logged out, Zarviar had disconnected from the server and still had his announcer on. When he logged back in, he was immediately kicked again. This is because the server did not allow a message, or in this case, a chat packet, to be sent upon logging in. You see, the way the hack worked is it sent a message greeting a player logging into any server, as well as anyone performing any action in the immediate area, and the user themselves performing any actions as well. So when Zarviar logged in, he was immediately kicked as he greeted himself. And as luck would have it, all this caused him to remember that he had his greeter module on and logged into a single-player world and quickly disabled it. Using the announcer feature meant that if you had ever logged out and tried to log back in, you would immediately be kicked by 2B2T as a form of anti-spam. After all, sending a chat packet upon logging in was often the mark of a hacker. So it was a simple matter of disabling it and rejoining 2B2T properly. Zarviar logging back in for the second time, then noticed a peculiarity unlike anything we had ever seen in the game up to that point. And I would just like to say really quick that if you're enjoying what you're seeing here, please leave a like and possibly even a comment. Subscribe if so inclined. And if you enjoy what you see, you'll get it a little bit earlier if you join our memberships, as well as a personalized sign book on 2B2T itself from yours truly, as well as monthly live streams held by exactly yours truly. And so yes, don't hesitate, do it today. Right before him, in the middle of the air, where Zarviar had previously been boating, there floated an exact duplicate of himself. Very quickly, Zarviar sent a screenshot of this oddity to the rest of the LAN's group chat we had on Skype, and many of us didn't believe it right away, but intrigued, I decided that it would be best to investigate further. By the time that I'd gotten there, Zarviar had already killed his clone by using a bow. He mentioned that he couldn't interact with it as it would get him kicked from the server as well. Later on, when I tried it, it also kicked me, as apparently one is not allowed to interact with oneself. It was even stranger than I'd first imagined, as Zarviar stated that the duplicate of himself also dropped all of the same items he had. which he then quickly collected and chested. Quickly, I began to question Zarviar on how he'd managed to pull off this miraculous event, and upon walking me through all the steps, I was also able to reproduce this effect myself. And sure enough, upon shooting my own clone to death, my clone also dropped an exact replica of my current inventory, which I also quickly gathered up. And immediately we took full advantage of this. We then figured out carrying out these actions while riding any rideable entity would duplicate the player and the entity, as well as the contents of the inventory and the rideable entity. I quickly understood that utilizing a donkey was probably the best route for duplicating items, as the donkey's inventory would easily be duplicated in addition to my own. And unlike with the clones, which had to be killed with a bow, the donkeys could simply be let loose and stripped of their inventory. After the events of this exploit, my friends and I made stashes all across the lands. However, these would all eventually be compromised when Jared would raid us in 2016. Upon realizing what I had just figured out, Zarviar and I celebrated the founding of what I would later on call the Clone Dupe. What was even funnier was that the clone was seen by the server as a valid player, meaning they showed up on the server tab list, and these fake players couldn't perform any actions, and they only took up valuable player slots. Back in those days, it was something of a joke by Housemaster that the server capacity could exceed no greater than 9,999 players. Clearly, this was intended to be a joke, but this absurd limit could never realistically be reached by ordinary means, right? However, we had extraordinary means in our very hands that moment, and soon after, other players began to notice an extreme buildup of duplicate accounts in the tab list, all of which were named after the original player that had executed the clone dupe, followed by a random assortment of numbers. These randomly assorted players quickly inflated the player count and would fill the server's capacity well into the hundreds. This, of course, as a sort of cosmic irony, is but a portent of the server's future yet to come. And to make matters worse, the TPS would suffer greatly, leading to many unfortunate questions being lobbed our way. And much quicker than that, the method to pull this duplication technique off spread like wildfire through our group, and very soon Pyrobite and Tristan would also partake in the dupe. As more and more names began clogging up the player slots on the server, this of course also drew the attention of Pop Bob. He did not understand exactly what we had going on, but he knew that Pyro and Tristan, who were in some ways his closest friends at the time, were at least capable of giving him enough hints for him to figure it out himself. Though they swore to me at the time they did not directly tell Pop Bob, I suppose I can believe that. It took several days, but upon figuring it out, Pop Bob would contribute to filling up the server much like the rest of us had. The server must have crashed over 1,000 times during that short week. Our actions would bring the server to its knees, causing intense lag from all the fake players trying to be loaded simultaneously. To make it even better, the fake players would not disappear until a server restart, and this eventually instated a sort of regular restart habit that Housemaster would later adopt. This dupe was always something I took pride in, as it was more or less found all on our own. Isn't it amazing how certain accidents can lead to such amazing discoveries and outcomes? And as all things are destined to, the fun of the duplication exploit came to an end, and in addition to Housemaster patching the exploit, we would have to contend with the next unfortunate and unforeseeable accident that would very quickly come our way. For all the while we were duping and playing Minecraft, Pop Bob was in the shadows and had been employing his now infamous lightning hack. As time marched on, though we could not yet know it, we would understand that this was the final duplication exploit to be discovered before the Russia invasion of 2016. What can immediately blossom into a lot of fun and mischief sometimes hinges on us just being in the right place at the right time. And if you like what you've heard, please leave a like and a comment, and even watch another video in the series or another video on my channel, as it greatly helps me out, and I appreciate anyone who is giving me their time today. Make sure to join the memberships as well if you would like an earlier access to all of my videos as I put them out, as well as uncensored versions. In addition, make sure to join our Discord below and follow me on Twitter, all of which is of course linked down below, and never forget the little things that might pass you by. For sometimes those smaller things in life are what become the most memorable. Stopping to smell the roses is always the most rewarding, even if it just seems like it's a waste of time. Thank you all so much, and have a wonderful day.